they've said the entry point was the slider or the window. It was in the middle floor. So to me, he doesn't have to go upstairs. His entry and exit are available without having to go upstairs or downstairs.
Their means of death don't match. They don't match. He doesn't have to go up the steps. I paid for that. It's my right. You ain't taking that from me.
Calm down.
Thankfully, because of the mom and dad of Kaylee Gonzalez, Steve and Christy, we are getting more information so the Idaho 4 case out of Moscow won't grow cold. As you can see, Steve and Christy are wearing their hearts on their sleeve and they're just talking. And Steve has told Fox News, quote, "They've said the entry point was the slider or the window, the middle floor." So I'm not sure if he means law enforcement has told him that. Someone has obviously given Steve that info. And that's why coming up in the interviews he's given to Fox, he's going to say he didn't have to go up the stairs. So he must know, Steve, I believe, is inferring that Maddie or Kaylee were indeed the targets here. He's not sure.
They put certain people between you and the officers that are making things happen, and those people are like lawyers, and they don't want to say anything, and they don't have the guts to come up and be alpha and be like leaders and say, hey, we might say something that's wrong. We're going to take that hit. So the officers, they look me straight in their eyes. The lead detective looked me in his eyes. I have no doubt he's working as hard as he can, but somebody isn't communicating. There's nothing being released. It seems like they're trying to suppress the story. We want to put rewards out. They're like, don't do that. Yeah, I get it. Your town doesn't want to have reward posters posted all over when you come and you do your rush. You're not going to get a lot of students if they see those things. But this community is not going to heal until this guy's pulled off the streets. It ain't going to happen. Think it through. It's not going to happen. He has to be off the streets. We all are working for the same thing. Thursday, we looked at our phone records. We want to be accurate. We don't want to sell anyone out.
About 3 o'clock on Thursday, and there was nothing. We have no updates for you.
There was no update. They needed me to sign a waiver form so that they could investigate something.
Some mail.
That was mail related. So we're working with them. We're not selling them out. We love our law support.
The FBI, everybody that's here. We just have no information as family, and it gets tough day after day after day. I mean, every day you just wake up and think today's the day. We're going to hear something, and you see these, oh, there's a break in the case, and it'll just be something stupid.
The sixth person on the lease that was never there. Stop playing games. This is serious. These are people's lives, and this is the future of this community. There's going to be 10,000, 15,000 kids that come into this community next year, or they don't. So be serious.
They have told us that it was targeted, but they told us they can't tell who. We asked specifically, and they said, we'll try to get that information to you. And they got back to us a day or so later, and they said, we're sorry, we can't give you that information. But then a day later, we saw in the news that it was not targeted, or they think the whole house was targeted. But
I'll cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Their means of death don't match. They don't match. Yeah. He doesn't have to go up the steps. Let's stop playing games, guys. I need somebody to step up and be an alpha. Be somebody to be a leader. Don't make me do it. I don't want to do it. He doesn't have to go up the steps. Their points of damage don't match. I'm just going to say it. It wasn't leaked to me. I earned that. I paid for that funeral.
He's trying to logically deduce by what information he's gathered so far, including 2 different means of death. He did say means. He didn't say cause or manner. He said means, which is kind of closer to manner. I'm not sure if that means someone experienced more brutality than the other ones. We don't know if someone was posed. We have no idea what that means. But obviously, none of these parents want this case to grow cold. Steve does not feel confident with the investigation. He has spoken with Zaina's dad, with Maddie's family. Notably, he hasn't spoken with Ethan's family. And I wish that's something that Zaina's mom, I hope she can speak to Ethan's family as well, because at the end, we'll listen to snippets of Ashley Banfield's interview with Zaina's mom, Kara, but it was just so sad and pretty bad, and I hope that Ethan Chapin's mom, Stacy, could tell Zaina's mom, Kara, what she told the Idaho Statesman about the surviving roommates hearing something. These interviews with these parents just make you want to cry. So today is Sunday, December 4th at 5:18 p.m. as I film this, and it's been more than 3 weeks since these 4 lovely students of the University of Idaho lost their lives. But we will see. I don't blame Steve for getting frustrated. He said they put certain things between you and the officers that are making things happen. These are people like lawyers, and they don't want to say anything, and they don't have the guts to come up and be an alpha. He's talking about, just be a leader, be in the forefront, and say, hey, we might say something that's wrong. So he's saying, look, just take the hit and tell the parents something. He does believe the officers have looked him straight in his eyes. The lead detective looked him in his eyes, and it sounds like he believes him. But Steve and the other parents are frustrated. You can tell someone is not communicating. There's nothing being released. It seems like they're trying to suppress the story. And Steve's going to get more into that. It's almost as if they're not, according to Steve, keep things quiet just for the sake of protecting the investigation. He's saying, look, if you really have something, that's one thing. But if you don't have anything, and you can tell sometimes if people don't have anything and they're just holding back because they don't know anything, then he's like, let us put up these reward posters. They're getting together a reward.
If you don't want to say nothing, that's your bet. But don't say I'm leaking anything. I paid that bill. Sent my daughter to college to get an education. She came back in a box, and I can speak on that.
We cannot actually. We know nothing about that whole phone call. We've asked. And I know that a lot of people want to know, but that's just not our agenda. We just are like, somebody called 911, somebody was reported unconscious. We don't really know. We've heard so many different things, and nothing has been clarified or been told to us at all. We know that this is getting 3 weeks in, and it's starting to get, we don't want it to go cold. We're reaching out. I've reached out to friends down in California today that have connections that we're hoping to raise some money to get a reward, to get a private investigator.
Third party.
Cool. We're scared.
When you tell me you don't want a photo up there with the reward offering information, that kind of sounds like you're trying to suppress the story. Why do you not need help? But hey, I could be wrong, and you officers, I apologize if I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please forgive me. Please forgive me. But if you don't have the information, people do know. If they don't, then the community. This is a community that is IT based. These guys live a digital footprint like we've never. All of us older people, we don't know how much that digital footprint could be helpful. So that's what we asked for. I hope like a DNA, a family lineage, if they could come out here and just start taking. This town is not that big. We could figure out this, and it might not be him. It might be a family member. We have family all going to the school together. There's cousins, there's aunts, there's uncles. We could find this guy with volunteers.
Lineage companies
Put Idaho on the map.
Steve is making it seem like the university and cops and everyone, they're a little bit more concerned, perhaps, with protecting the college's reputation, the college's pocketbooks. I can flash some big numbers on the screen. I started looking up the University of Idaho budget. Fiscal year 2021, net non-operating revenues of $200.1 million were $6.2 million higher than the prior year. And of course, they don't want those to dip, but is that their primary concern? I hope not. Sounds like Steve is saying if you put these reward posters up around town, help lead to information. Who took these 4 beautiful young people off the face of this earth? Any information you can give us, let us know. He's saying, yeah, I get it. Your town doesn't want to have reward posters posted all over when you come and do your rush. You're not going to get a lot of students if they see those things, but he's saying the community isn't going to heal until this guy is pulled off the street. It's going to happen. So he's saying, think it through. It won't happen. He has to be off the streets. We're all working for the same thing. He was saying you might be concerned about the reputation of how would it look in Moscow to, upcoming students or parents. Would they even want to send their kids to that town, that school, or even nearby schools it could affect? If this person is still on the loose, who would want to send their kid to that college if they can't be safe? But the last time they heard from police was Thursday. They looked at their phone records, Christy and Steve. They wanted to be accurate. They don't want to sell anyone out, but it was Thursday at 3 o'clock. There were no updates about the investigation. They needed Steve to sign some kind of waiver form so that they could investigate some type of mail. So Steve said, look, we're working with them. We're not selling them out. We love our law support, everybody that's here. We just have no information as a family. And Christy said it gets tough day after day. I mean, every day you just wake up and think today's the day. You think you're going to hear something, and she talks about, you see these stupid reports like, there's a break in the case, and it's just something stupid like there was a sixth person on the lease that was never there, basically. Steve has had enough. He's like, stop playing games. This is serious. These are people's lives. This is the future of this community. So much so, at one point, you saw Christy tell Steve to calm down. But he's saying, look, if there's going to be 10 or 15,000 kids coming into the community next year, or maybe they won't, or maybe those kids won't come back. But that's when the reporter asked about the different manner in which the victims unfortunately were taken out. He heard some were more severe than others. Christy said, they've told us it was targeted, but they told us they can't tell us who. We asked specifically, and I don't really know. I wonder what would be the harm. Of course, we're not police, we're not investigators, we're not detectives. I don't know how much it would harm the case, for example, if police came out and just said, for example, Maddie was the target. And wouldn't that help everyone hone in on Maddie's life? Wouldn't that make people think deeper about, my interactions with Maddie over the previous 6 months, 1 day, 3 weeks, or what have you? To me, wouldn't that help them? But later they came back and said, we can't give you that info. Christy experienced frustration because she said a day later she saw on the news, it wasn't targeted, or they think it was the house that was targeted. But that's when Steve said, look, I will cut to the chase. Their means of death don't match. Lawrence asked Maddie and Kaylee's causes of death. It doesn't match based on the autopsy report. Steve said they don't match. And that's when he said he doesn't have to go up the steps. So if that entry point was the sliding glass door or a window in the middle, if the person were indeed targeting Zaina and Ethan on the middle floor, there would have been no need to go up the steps, is what Steve is saying. So in essence, what could have happened, maybe the perpetrator may have come through the sliding glass door or a window, second floor, used that to go up the stairs, because it would have been harder to get up on that balcony just because of the way the land goes down. He would have had to maybe climb somehow on that balcony and maybe not have been able to get in that way. But the second floor, going in that way, going up the stairs to Maddie and Kaylee, who Steve believes, according to photos he's seen about which bed was already made, he believes Maddie and Kaylee were right there together.
I love you. I love you.
So it could have been just one of them that was the target. But if both of those girls were in the same room together, the person could have done away with one of them who was his target and the other was the witness, then unfortunately took her life too. Was the person trying to just exit the way he came on the second floor? By then, had Ethan and Zaina heard something? Did Ethan awaken? And as we see rumors swirling around on Reddit, was Ethan found somewhere outside of Zaina's room? So did he hear something? Did he hear screaming? Did he try and go to their rescue? And the killer just took him out on the way down on the second floor, and Zaina as well? And did the two surviving roommates truly hear something on that first floor? I know the prior tenant there from years ago said it was hard to hear things. Maybe he could hear the TV if it was up loud. But why did Stacy Chapin, Ethan's mom, say the surviving roommates heard something? I wish she could give peace of mind somehow, even though it would be cold comfort, I know, but just it breaks your heart to hear Kara, Zaina's mom, just even beg Ashley Banfield for information. She's saying they had to have heard something, the dog, something.
Honestly, no. Honestly, no. They haven't said anything. I learn more on the news and on TV than they have said to me. we need more answers. There is so much more that can be done that has not been done. And I just know that there's GPS, NASA could find out who went into that home that night. I know that. Why hasn't that been looked into? Why hasn't that been accessed? I may be candid in saying this, but I think that they were at a bar. That's what their father conveyed to me, that he thought that they were at the bar at that night. So, yeah. I mean, that's what college kids do on the weekends. So.
But you don't know for sure that they left the Sigma Chi house, went to a bar? Okay.
I don't know for sure, absolutely not. I just had a question about the other two roommates who were there on the first floor, and I just wonder, wasn't something heard, or, the surviving roommates that were there, they had to have heard something, they had to have, the dog, something. I believe it did. Her father mentioned to me that he had just went and replaced the lock the weekend before. Yes, that he had, or he had fixed it or something. But yeah, he said that he had fixed it the week before. Yes.
So that's the lock on her own bedroom door, not the lock to the outside of the house. That's her own bedroom door's lock?
In the main lock he was referring to. I'm not sure. Just from him telling me that when we were speaking. So.
But back to Steve, he's saying, let's stop playing games. I need somebody to step up, be a leader. Don't make me do it. I don't want to. I think he just means by that is I will just keep speaking out. He said he's not going to stay in his bed. That's not what his daughter Kaylee would want him to do. He taught them to, fight for yourselves. So he wants to speak out, keep speaking out so this case won't grow cold, as I believe he feels it already is. But he said, look, I'm just going to say it. It wasn't leaked to me. I earned that. I paid for that funeral. I paid for that. It's my right. You ain't taking that from me. And that's when his wife told him to calm down. But he's saying, if you don't want to say nothing, that's your bet. But don't say I'm leaking anything. I paid that bill. He's saying, it's like he's paid for it in grief and tears. He said, I sent my daughter to college to get an education and she came back in a box, and I can speak on that. They can't talk about any more details. They don't know a lot about the phone call. We've heard all these scenarios about how the phone call to 911 happened. And Christy said, a lot of people want to know about it. That's not their agenda. She's like, look, somebody called 911. Someone was reported unconscious. We've heard different scenarios about what may have happened. It sounds like, of course, all of it is important, but it sounds like to Christy, that part is not as important as just finding who did this, of course. It's been, more than 3 weeks. They don't want it to grow cold. They're reaching out to friends in California that have connections. They're hoping to get a reward together. They're hoping to get a private investigator, a third party. I don't blame them. Get a PI in there, get a good one. What could it hurt? These victims' parents are afraid they're not getting enough info. They're not getting anything. 100% Christy and Steve are scared that it might grow cold. Why are they telling Steve they don't want a photo out there with a big splash reward offering? Is it just bad marketing for the college? Steve said, it sounds like you want to suppress the story. I mean, why do you not need help? Steve said. But he did apologize. He said, I could be wrong. Officers, I apologize if I'm wrong. Please forgive me. But if you don't have the info, and people know if they have the info, Christy said, give us something. And Steve is saying, this is a community that is IT based. These guys have a digital footprint like us older people never have, and I agree with them there. There's digital info everywhere, and that's what they hope for. And I do see sometimes where we can assume that police are like miracle workers. They're hoping, I don't know if this next line meant that they do have DNA evidence, they could run it through or match it to something. because they're asking for like DNA family lineage, you know, the DNA genealogy that's growing much more popular. If they could come out here and just start taking, I don't blame Steve. He's like, this is a small town. This town is not that big. We can figure this out. It might not be him, but it might be a family member. So they could get close, like the Golden State Killer, or find someone it's related to. I know that would impinge upon constitutional rights. I couldn't help but think of that Charles Stewart case back in Boston years ago when he did away with his pregnant wife. He blamed a black guy, and Boston cops had no problem with taking down hundreds, snatching up black guys everywhere to try and catch this supposed perpetrator, but it wasn't even him. But I'm like, with Steve, go take everyone's DNA in Moscow, run it against whatever DNA you have, you know, as much as you can, narrow it down. They have family going to the school. They're saying, look, this genealogy thing, that might help catch who did this. We can find this guy with those lineage companies, put Idaho on the map. In fact, you know, find the perpetrator in a way maybe that has never been found before. Boy, how heartfelt. And then there was Zainer Kernodle's mom, who spoke with Ashley Banfield. She was just on the phone, and that's why I hate phone interviews. You know, you do what you can. But Kara Denise Northington, she said the police haven't been helpful. They haven't said anything. She learns more on the news and on TV than they've said to her. We need more answers. And this is where I think sometimes people think technology can be like a miracle worker. But she said, I know that there's GPS, NASA capabilities. You can find out who went in that house that night. Why hasn't that been looked into? Why hasn't that been accessed? Now, we don't know if cops have accessed it or not, but we know they haven't arrested someone as far as we know. So there's not as much progress as people like. But even when I look into like the Apollo mapping and all those different companies where, you know, you try and see images over the house, they're so far away, and sometimes you just can't, and they're not images taken daily. So I think sometimes people think there's a lot more of a data footprint out there than there is, but there's still a lot. But the part that broke my heart was when Kara was saying, I just have a question about the other two roommates that were there on the first floor. Wasn't something heard or, and that's when I hope she could speak with Ethan Chapin's mom, Stacy, who told the Idaho Statesman that the roommates heard something. I wish Ethan's mom, I know she's spoken out, and boy, that vigil, that would break your heart too. Just, oh my goodness. Maddie's dad, that was the first time I just let the tears roll in bed, cried over his speech when he talked about scoring those tickets to the Mac Miller concert for Maddie. And this is the first time he spoke out and just being so proud of his daughter. And boy, that just really, but I wish the same here with Zaina's mom, she could speak with Ethan Chapin's mom, Stacy, to find out a little bit more about hearing something, even if it just stays between the parents, the victim's parents, and doesn't have to go public. That part was heartbreaking. Also, Kara did note that Zaina's room, she wasn't sure if it had a coded lock. She was not sure about a lot of things and wouldn't speak on a lot of things, so it wasn't as much information as Steve has been putting out there. But Zaina's father mentioned to Zaina's mom that he had just replaced the locks the weekend before, and Ashley said replaced. Kara wasn't sure. She said yeah, or he had fixed them or something, but he had fixed them the week before. Maybe the main lock. Maybe, I don't know why Zaina's dad Jeff did that, but maybe his daughter had communicated something like this lock needs to be fixed. And how ironic, he was just down there, you know, fixing the locks to secure his daughter and her roommates. And maybe he did fix the front. She wasn't sure which one it was. Maybe he fixed the front door. Maybe he fixed Zaina's lock and it just wasn't locked on her bedroom door. But imagine he fixed that, but somehow, I don't know if the perpetrator would have tried to access the front door. If he fixed it, imagine that may have been what saved the surviving roommates' lives. If she's talking about that front door where you can see the 1122 on the facade of the house, maybe that prompted the perpetrator to go up to a sliding door or a window on the middle second floor. We don't know. There's so much left to be known, but I think that's it for now. We'll keep track. I'm glad Steve is speaking out. I hope a PI can find out more. A PI can help work with police and give them tips that they might not have. Let's close with Genesis 2:22 through 23. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from the man, he made, fashion formed into a woman, and he brought her and presented her to the man. Then Adam said, "This now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, she shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man." Thank you so much for watching.
Because how could something like this happen so quickly, so quietly, so without any answer, unless it was somebody super close to them? You know what I mean? I think they knew them. I think they may have even been friends with them. I think it had to have been somebody close to them to have been able to get away with it like this.